Okay, so for your 1.4 quiz tomorrow, at the top of your guys' paper, it says to make sure you write everything in factored form. What that means is once you write down your final answer, make sure that there's no common factors. Okay, so take out the GCF when you can. A lot of you probably noticed in number 1 that these were the same exact quadratic expressions. Okay, and these were also the same. And if you just cross those out there, that's perfectly fine. You will end up getting 1 over 1, which simplifies to 1. So we don't leave our answers 1 divided by 1. You can divide 1 by 1. Okay, so you should have one single answer. Okay, questions for me on number 1? Okay, number 2, it says simplify the expression. The first thing you should be doing here is factoring. This is a special pattern. Can anybody tell me what the pattern name is? Difference of squares. So it's going to be y plus 6, y minus 6. The square root of y squared is y. The square root of 36 is 6. Now on the bottom, again, take out the common factor. What do we take out first? What do we take out first? What do we take out first? I know, I want everybody to say it. Okay, so what do we take out first?
Greatest common factor.
Okay, there we go. Don't forget that. It's also going to make it so much easier for you if you factor out this 2. Because I know some of you don't like it when there's a number in front. Well, look, this takes the number in front away. So now you can factor y squared minus 4y minus 12. So what multiplies to negative 12, that adds to negative 4. So then you'd have y minus 6 times y plus 2. The y minus 6's would cancel out. On the top, you'd be left with y plus 6. In the denominator, you'd have 2 times y plus 2. Okay, how do we do on that one? If you forgot to take out the common factor, you might have missed that the y minus 6 could cancel out. So just adjust that. Okay? Or if you had 2y plus 4, again, just take out your greatest common factor. Okay, now 3. This says find the domain. Whenever I give you a review, that means you have done these problems before. So not one problem should be left blank or incomplete. You need to make sure you are completing those. For the domain, there's 2 things we're looking for. Okay, you said give me one thing we're looking for.
You're looking for the fraction.
Okay, so if we have a fraction, right? And Kaden, if we have a fraction, what do we have to watch out for?
We have 0 in the denominator.
Okay, yes. So we have to make sure the denominator of this fraction cannot be 0. I talked about this yesterday with you guys, I think. If you have 1 over 9, why don't I have to worry about that one? The denominator is never going to change, right? It doesn't matter what I plug in for y, the denominator is going to be 9. Okay, so really, the domain of the top is just all real numbers, so you don't even have to worry about that. Okay, so if we know the denominator cannot equal 0, then we're going to factor. And I think I did some factoring with you guys yesterday, right? When you had the 6 in front. Did we do the little house or anything? No, we didn't do that. Okay, so when you have the 6 in front, you have to ask yourself what multiplies to 6. Okay, Nick Switzer, what are the 2 things that multiply to 6?
3 and 2.
And? Okay, so it's either 3y and 2y or 6y and y. It just means you're going to have more to guess and check, and that's okay. The last 2 have to multiply to negative 8. Well, if I do the factors of 8, I know it's 1 and 8 and 2 and 4. Okay, so my options for each one of these are either 1, 8, 2, and 4. 1, 8, 2, and 4. Same thing here. 1, 8, 2, and 4. 1, 8, 2, and 4. Now, I could guess and check all of them. Okay, let's try to save some time. Look at the middle number. It's negative 47. That's pretty big, right? So let's take the biggest 2 numbers we have and multiply them. What's the biggest number I have in the front? 6. What's the biggest number I have in my chart? 8. What's 6 times 8? Oh, that seems kind of promising, right? So if I look at 6y and y, if I put negative 8 here, what would have to go next to it? a positive 1. And that's because 1 times negative 8 is negative 8. So let's check this. 1 times y is 1y. 6 times 8 is negative 48. Y minus 48 is negative 47y. Is that what I wanted? Yep. So when you're checking it, you're just using what method? Foiling. Okay, you're just foiling it back to make sure that it checks out. Now for the domain, you have to go one step further and set them both equal to 0. So 6y plus 1 equals 0, or y minus 8 equals 0, because we know when you multiply them together, they equal 0. So one of them has to be, and because their product is 0. So y can't be negative 1, 6, or y can't be 8. This one didn't specify which notation to put it in, so we're going to do it in both. So in set builder notation, you could just say y such that y is not equal to negative 1, 6, comma 8, or you could also, if you said or and, that doesn't matter to me for this. Okay, and then if you're doing the interval notation, if you're having trouble with that, think of a number line. So on our number line, the two numbers we watch out for are negative 1, 6 and 8. So it can be anything except for those. How many intervals does this make? 3. Here's my first one. So the first interval is negative infinity to negative 1, 6. Why does this have to have a soft bracket? It's not included. Okay, it cannot be that value. This interval is 8 to infinity, and then my interval in the middle is negative 1, 6 to 8. So then I'm just connecting those with my union. Okay? Follow-up questions for me? Yeah.
On the test, if it doesn't say like which
That
way you put it.
I will tell you. If it's not on there, I'll verbally tell you. And I will double check that. Okay, so for 4, it says perform the division and simplify. Okay, if you're doing the division, you think skip, flip, multiply, or multiply by the reciprocal. What are you always doing first with these types of problems? Factoring. Okay, that's why I gave you that whole big factoring worksheet, so you could have lots of practice factoring. Okay, so when you factor, again, we have the difference of two squares. So 3x plus 1, 3x minus 1. And then for this one, you're going to end up with x plus 8 times x plus 8. That's in the denominator because it's division, so I'm flipping. Okay, and then here, this would be 3x minus 1 times x plus 6. Again, you can go ahead and check that with FOIL. 3 times 6 is 18. 18 minus 1 is positive 17. Check your signs. Negative 17 and positive 17 are not the same thing. If you're getting a negative and it should be positive, you just have to flip your signs. Okay, how do we do on number 4? Questions for me on that? And make sure you are writing the correct answers down if you don't have them. So if you didn't finish it or didn't do it. Okay, number 5. Perform the operation and simplify. So again, it's division. So what we're going to do is we're going to factor. Oh, look. This starts off very similar to the last one. So difference of two squares here. Okay, we're going to factor the top. We're going to factor the bottom. But then we're going to flip them so that we can multiply. Now, terms cancel out if one is in the numerator and one is in the denominator. We talked about y earlier. Do you guys remember? Because it's 1 because you're doing what with them? Yeah, eventually you're dividing them, right? If you multiply across and then divide, this is really like x plus 8 divided by x plus 8. Because this is multiplication here, that's allowed. If this was plus, would it be allowed? No. Okay, so this is x plus 8 divided by x plus 8, that's 1. What happens if everything on the top cancels out, but not everything on the bottom cancels out?
So 1 over.
Yes, it'd be 1 over whatever expression you have left. Okay, good. So x plus 4 over 3x plus 1 times x plus 1 should be your final answer. Questions for me on that? That's good? All right, let's flip it over. Okay, so now we're gonna go to subtraction. So whenever you add or subtract, what do you have to have? Common denominator. Okay, so when you add or subtract, what do you have to have? Common denominator. Right? Now this is where things get complicated because in order to get a common denominator, what operation do you have to end up doing? You have to multiply. So now we're having addition, subtraction, and we're having multiplying. So you need to factor first. Okay? Factor this. Then you can find the LCD. You can see this is x plus 4. See how it's missing the x plus 3? So you're going to multiply the top and the bottom by x plus 3. You have to distribute the 2. Now on the top, you're not going to leave it in factored form. And that's because what do we have to do on the top? We are distributing, and then what are we doing here? Yeah, adding and subtracting common terms. Okay, so you have to combine like terms. Then you can get here, and if you can factor it, and if you can't, you leave it. Okay, so we can't factor anything out of there, so we're good. So 2x plus 5 over x plus 4 times x plus 3. How'd that go? All right.
So I suppose it was addition, subtraction, and like distributing numbers and not keeping them in factor form. And then
Yes. Yes.
move division and multiplication.
Right. Okay, so simplify the expression. This is a compound fraction. Okay, so the first thing you want to do is isolate. Okay, just worry about the numerator first and make that into one term. So our LCD for the numerator is x plus 1 times x minus 1. So I'm going to multiply the second one by x minus 1 over itself. I'm going to, multiply the first one by x plus 1 over itself. How'd we do with that part? Okay, so again, the top you have to FOIL out. X plus 1 times x plus 1 you have to FOIL. So x squared plus 2x plus 1. Okay, and then this is plus x minus 1. Okay, on the top. And then the denominator is going to stay the same. Now we're going to do something similar here, but this one you have to be careful of because it's a negative. If you want, sometimes what I do, see how I changed this to a plus? And then I distributed the negative to the 2 right away? Yeah, so then when I distribute, I did negative 2 times x times negative 1. Okay, so then if I distribute, I'll get 7x plus 7 minus 2x plus 2. Now, when you skip, flip, and multiply, what's going to happen to the numerator, or sorry, to the denominator of the first fraction and the denominator of the second fraction? Those are going to cancel, right? So I just didn't write it out as they're going to cancel here. Nick, you with me? Right, so then once those cancel, your new numerator is going to be what we have left from here. We would have x squared plus 2x plus x, which is x squared plus 3x, over 5x plus 9. But that is not in factored form. Because what is the common factor in x squared and 3x? What's the common factor? X, right? Okay, so we're going to factor that out. Okay, so your final answer should be x times x plus 3 over 5x plus 9. Remember, we are going to put this score on our sheet. That's why we're correcting it today. All right, and then for 8, you're going to simplify the compound fraction. I'm going to start from the beginning. Okay, so now you have a whole number. Whole numbers are nice because the LCD is just going to be the denominator of the other one. Okay, so if this denominator is x minus 4, that's what you multiply by, x minus 4 over itself. Okay, so then we're gonna distribute the 4. We'll get 4x minus 16 plus 1 plus 1. Denominator is the same. Okay, now for this one, it's the same thing, where you have the 4 over 1 minus 1 over x minus 4. Okay, and then from there, you're gonna multiply the top and the bottom by x minus 4. And then you'll get 4x minus 16 minus 1. Again, when you skip, flip, and multiply, the x minus 4s are going to cancel out. And you'll be left with 4x minus 15 over 4x minus 17. Okay, what if you had something like this? What if you had something like 4 plus 1 over 2x squared over 1 over x plus 1 over x squared. Do you guys feel like you could do that? Well, what do we do? First thing you want to do is isolate, right? Let's just do the numerator, okay? All right, so this is just 4 plus 1 over 2x squared. What's my common denominator?
2x squared.
Okay, so then what am I going to multiply this by?
2x squared.
Okay, so if I do 2x squared over itself, 4 times 2, 8. So I'm just going to put this whole thing over 2x squared, and then plus 1. Can I cancel things out? You know why not? Okay. That they would this whole factor here on top is 8x squared plus 1. Those have to stay together. Okay, if it was times, you could cross it out. Or if there was a 2x squared here. Okay, that's all I had to do for the top. All right, let's do the bottom. So the bottom is 1 over x plus 1 over x squared. Okay, Aiden, what do you think the LCD is here? That's part of it. So this one has 1x, this one has 2. So it's going to have to be x squared. So what can I multiply by x to get to x squared? X, right? So I multiply by x over x. So then what I'd have is, this is x over x squared plus 1 over x squared. So I'd have x plus 1 over x squared. Is that okay so far? Okay, so then let's divide these. Okay, so I'm going to take the first one and keep it the same. I'm going to flip the second one. And then I'm going to see what I can cancel out. Yeah, what cancels? X squared and x squared. Okay, so on the top I have 8x squared plus 1. On the bottom I have 2 times x plus 1. I'm going to leave it just like that because that is in factored form. Okay, so you can always isolate the numerator and the denominator. All right, sorry, did you guys want, sorry, do you guys need that? Okay, so for number 9, we're going to rationalize the denominator of the expression. You have to multiply by the, what's this called? No, start to the C. Conjugate. Okay, so you're going to multiply by the conjugate. Stay with me. So once you multiply by the conjugate, you're going to do that on the top and the bottom. And on the bottom, when you're multiplying, what strategy are you using? I don't want to see that. Put it in your bag. When you are multiplying those two, you're going to have to FOIL. Okay, so 4 times 4 is 16. Okay, the middle is going to cancel if you multiply by the right thing. And then what's root 17 times root 17? 17. Because it's a positive and a negative, it'll stay negative. Now, do not leave your answer like this. Okay, you can simplify. Can't we divide by -1? Yeah, what's 4 divided by -1? -4. What's negative root 17 divided by -1? Positive root 17. Okay, so you need to leave your answer like this. You should never have a -1 or 1 in the denominator. You can always simplify that. Alright? Alright, and then the last one is rationalizing as well, just a little more complex. And for this one, we are rationalizing the numerator. Since it's not a fraction, I'm going to put it in a fraction form by putting it over 1. Okay, and then I'm going to multiply by the conjugate. With the conjugate, the only thing that's changing is this sign. Do you guys remember why you don't want to change the sign of what's underneath the radical? Why wouldn't you want to make that +9? Think about what would happen. If you multiply the square root of x minus 9 times x plus 9, would that be x minus 9? No. Yeah, it changes it, right? It'd be the square root of x squared minus 81. We don't want that. Okay, so then we need to keep it so that we can square this and the square root would take it away. The middle again is going to cancel out. You'll have minus x. The numerator you are just multiplying by 1, so that stays the same. And then we're just going to clean that up. Okay, so x minus x, they cancel out. Don't forget to keep your negative there. Okay, so you should have -9 on top. And then in your denominator, the square root of x minus 9 minus the square root of x. Okay, good. Questions for me? Yeah.
This one, why can't the 4s cancel? That's where I have my answer.
Oh, yeah, so the 4s are not going to be able to cancel out for this because this is one whole factor.
Oh, okay.
In order for the 4 to cancel out, you'd have to be able to take the 4 out of this, this, and this,
Oh.
and that.
So if it was just like,
If it was
since
4
it's connected by subtraction and addition, you can.
yes. If they were times, then you could.
Okay.
Because you're not dividing 4x by 4x here, you're dividing 4x minus 15 by
Okay.
4x.
Yeah, because I had like x minus 15 over x minus 7.
Yes. Okay, so your quiz tomorrow, the format is going to be very similar. I have a feeling it'll be 10 questions. And how many questions are there on your review? 10 questions. Okay, so that is not a coincidence. Also remember that in addition to studying for your quiz, you should also be doing your review homework.